The engine is mostly complete, but before we go any further, we need to talk about the structure of this car. And this is just a brief introduction. We'll get onto more details when we start working on the body shell. Now, it's time to get the engine block off this lovely stand and start building up the rest of the engine systems. And we could do a lot of this on the engine stand, but it's going to be hard for you guys to see, and we'd be jumping around from one system to another, from the coolant to the air intake to the exhaust and so on. It would be much better if we could focus on one system at a time, and to do that we're going to fit the engine onto its subframe and work from there. Now take a look at how this car fits together. We have a front and a rear subframe. The engine fits onto the front subframe, the transmission bolts to the engine, and then a rigid backbone called the power plant frame connects the transmission to the back subframe. Power comes out of the back of the transmission along a drive shaft to the differential. And the subframes also support the suspension and most of the steering system. Finally, the body shell is dropped over the subframe and bolted into position. Now, subframes are quite common in production cars. Sometimes you'll find just a front subframe or just a rear subframe. They can help to isolate the drivetrain from the bodywork, and that cuts down on vibration and road noise. And production engineers love them because whole sub-assemblies can be built separately and then the body is dropped over the top of them. And since they bear the weight of the engine and the transmission, they allow for a bit more flexibility on the body shell design. But on many cars, and in fact probably most cars, everything is mounted directly to the body shell and there are no subframes. Other vehicles, particularly 4x4s and pickups, will use a traditional old school ladder chassis. This subframe for this vehicle is slightly unusual because it has this aluminium truss that joins the front and the back. And I love this design because it lets us build a large part of the car and leave it basically naked so that it's easy to see how everything fits together. So I hope that gives you an idea of where we're going, and I just have now to figure out how to get this engine onto the subframe. But next up, we're talking about engine mounts.